those end goals that we talk about in relationship management. So that's what is self-awareness and those behaviors that fall within that. I want to now talk about developing that. So we know that that's an important attribute, and it's the critical underpinning. It's the foundation by which the rest of the emotional intelligence framework scaffolds on this idea of an underpinning self-awareness. How can we develop this? Well, to be honest with you, most recent research shows that it's very limited how much people can actually develop in this area. And as I said, we're still very, very new into this, so we don't really know what the state of play is. But this is what we know so far from the research, that at a best case scenario, we can look at about a 6% improvement. So through things such as coaching, mentoring, stopping in the moment. And okay, I'm in this situation right now. If I can stop in the middle of this situation and assess, reflect on how do I feel? Is it appropriate? How should I be feeling? What's the outcomes? What should be the appropriate response to get to the outcome that I want? But really anchoring in on this, how am I feeling and what are the reasons for this feeling? If I can work with a coach and we can stop mid interaction and have this reflective activity going on, over time I can improve my self-awareness by about 6%. So that's pretty good, considering that, as I said, we're still in the early stages. But it does show that where we're at the moment in terms of emotional intelligence is really at an intuitive level. When we look at people and say, yeah, those people are really highly emotionally intelligent, we're most likely looking at people who have developed these skills through other forms and have been able to build on those intuitively rather than instructionally. However, we can take lessons away from this. We can learn from this research that's been done so far to say, okay, well, if we stop and we think about how we're feeling in the moment, that can have a significant influence in terms of how we respond. So when we're in the moment, is to make sure that we do have as part of our process the ability to stop and think about, okay, so I'm thinking about what's the problem, what's the solution. I also need to be thinking about, how am I feeling right now? What's my emotional level? How am I stressed? Is this triggering stress? Is this triggering certain emotional responses? Are they the best? Am I in the best state of mind to be dealing with this right now? And using that basis for decisions that we're making going forward, things such as, well, do I need to remove myself for a bit? Do I need to come back to this? Or no, actually, I think I'm in a really good space right now, and I'm well suited to be able to respond to this situation right now. And that's it. And through that, we will build a sense of self-confidence. Not only are you building a behavioral pattern, and it's like everything that when we learn a new skill, we have to be very conscious of those steps that we take in terms of the process for developing the skill. But once you do it sufficiently, it becomes unconscious competency. So we no longer think about this. And when we talk about intuitive actions or behaviors, is where something has become unconscious. So for example, if you learn to play the guitar, quite a while at the start, you've got to be really conscious about where you put your fingers in terms of the chord shapes and so forth. But after a while, after you've done it for a while, you no longer have to think about that, and you can start thinking about picking patterns or singing or any of those other variations that you want to do. It becomes that part of it, the chord shapes, becomes unconscious. And this is no different. To develop self-awareness, it's really just getting into a pattern of behavior where you're stopping yourself, thinking about how you're feeling, doing an assessment on whether it's appropriate, which goes into the next attribute, and developing a pattern of behavior where you're starting to put that into your decision-making process, and that's going to feed into your response. It's also really good. One of the other things that have been found to be really useful in terms of developing self-awareness is maintaining a journal. People who really want to develop in this area are encouraged to keep a journal of significant events and emotions and how they felt. It's not quite in the moment, but it's as a reflective tool. And this idea of ongoing reflection, and seeking feedback, another not necessarily in the moment, although it can be, but often as an after the moment event, is to seek feedback from others about how you handled the situation and use that to calibrate against how you felt that you were feeling emotionally during that interaction. So you can evaluate your behaviors by being conscious in the moment, as I talked about, and observing and evaluating, asking others for feedback. You can do this personal reflection, things such as journaling or debriefing with people you trust, as a way of this looking back after the event. You can also evaluate your behaviors by role modeling, picking someone who you feel is an astute, emotional, intelligent individual, and then being able to compare your behaviors with how they would respond to a situation or the similar situation, and use that role modeling to evaluate your behaviors. If you are more aware of and can evaluate your emotions, you can begin to take responsibility for the way you manage them to increase your emotional intelligence. So by becoming more aware of your emotions in the moment, you can then have greater control over your responses, and that gives you a sense of responsibility to that as well. Of course, I've talked about self-reflection, so just sort of to park on this point a little bit. This idea of self-reflection is a process of stopping to take the time to really introspect and think about, how you're feeling, what were the emotions behind those feelings, and there's can be a wide range of emotions. I don't want to simplify it and say, happy or sad, angry or whatever the case may be. It's sometimes it can be conflict in emotions. You could be happy but still be disappointed. You're happy for an individual because they've been able to do this, but you still feel a sense of disappointment or jealousy because you would have liked to, even though I feel happy for that person, I would have liked to have been more involved in that. So it's not just a straight, this is the emotion that you feel. Often emotions are really quite complex, and taking that into account. But self-reflection will give you the time to really unpack those things, and as you become more aware of those emotions and the reasons for them, you get to know yourself better. And knowing yourself better means that you can then look at opportunities for development, look at putting in mitigating strategies, or look at perhaps learning from the experience. So when we reflect and we examine, we look at things such as what motivated me to respond or react in that moment the way I did. How did I speak to other people, both verbally and non-verbally? So what did I say and what were my actions? What was my body language? Was I standing up? Was I sitting down? Was my posture open or closed? Was I frowning? Was I smiling? Was I making eye contact, or were my eyes shifting away? How did you understand the other person and their perspective? Did I stop to think about it from their perspective genuinely? Did I think about their total perspective, or just how it would look from my perspective in their shoes? And how well did I understand myself in that, and how well did did others understand me and I understand myself?